our work session. We came out of closed executive session just a little while ago, relevant to limited personnel matters as permitted under section 1051H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically to discuss the superintendent's formative evaluation. And no decisions were made, and we adhere to the OMA. With that, we can continue.
Okay. Mr. President, members of the board, we have Mr. Sean Mussel here from PSFA, the Public School Facilities Authority, and he's going to share some information about the demolition and process of South Mountain and, I'm sorry, not South Mountain, South Edgewood building and the old NES Barbell building, and answer questions that you have, and we'll go from there. So, Mr. Sean, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And I'll let you start.
All right. Just to start off real quickly, if there's anything that I would like to look more into before I give an answer to, I will write that down and take it with me, find an answer, and send it to Teresa to send out. I just don't really want to spread any disinformation.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Do we have any questions about the demolition project to start off?
I think that the board would like to hear the presentation and kind of go over some of the questions that we had talked about and worked on prior to the meeting, because we had questions over the last several weeks that have been asked of us, and so maybe go a little bit more in depth of kind of what the process is, and we can even just go through the questions if you'd like, whatever you're more comfortable with.
Sure. So these demolition projects were recently approved by the PSCOC, which determines state funding for projects that my agency executes. And it's a fairly opportune award that allows us to fund demolition for schools or school buildings that are no longer occupied and have become a burden on the district for maintenance and insurance reasons. So we've been working on this award for a little while, and now that the school's going to be vacated shortly, we would be going through with the demolition project with the district approval. So the advantage of doing one of these demolition projects as opposed to a regular PSFA funded systems project, which would be more limited, is that PSFA will cover 100% of the cost associated with the demolition, compared to the normal splits that we request of the district, where we have the district pony up a portion of whatever the overall project budget will be, and that's based off of the financial ability of the district, based on how we think that they'll need to fund their facilities. Moriarty Edgewood doesn't have a very favorable split. So,
We do not.
so this is a little bit of a good way to approach it for us. As far as renovation would look, there would be a lot more steps involved. You would need a building systems analysis report, which basically allows us to determine what kind of costs would be associated with the renovation. And we would need that to be a certain percentage less than an overall construction, and with the condition of the roof, I do personally think that's pretty unlikely that would actually get through.
So Sean, just so I'm gonna add just a little bit. So currently our split is 78%. So any project we do with PSFA, the district pays 78% and the state would pay the 22%. We just got that refigured in the last couple of years, hasn't it been? We used to be 49-51, didn't we? So our cut is significantly more. So that is a big piece of this.
Absolutely.
I'm going to interrupt if I could. I'm just curious. The how that number is determined, I mean, how you move up and down on your split. I interviewed.
Sure. So, yeah. So when it's determined annually based on the condition of your schools, the enrollment, the number of square feet that you need, and that comes through a facilities master plan. And we look at those numbers, and there's, it goes through legislature, and then the splits are determined from that.
I just know that has moved, like you said, on us.
Yeah, it does fluctuate, and it depends on your enrollment, and also your ability to place taxes, mills, things like that. So.
You also mentioned about a percentage of the cost to renovate versus tear down and new, and tell me a little bit more about that and what the percentage is.
So that, generally we look for it to be about 60% of the cost to just build a new facility. And in this particular case, that's why I said that the condition of the roof is very poor. In a similarly sized project, I mean, we're with escalated materials and labor costs right now. I don't think that's likely to go through. And
Can you speak up?
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
do you have a microphone maybe? Okay. Well, I'll try to project.
That's better, right?
Well, maybe, Todd, let's move him over to the side so he's facing, yeah, so we can hear him bilaterally. There he goes.
And I guess on that note as well, a partial demolition of the school would probably be unlikely to pass through our legislature for a couple reasons. The awards that we're making are primarily focused on total demolition of existing buildings, freestanding buildings, and there would be substantial increase in cost associated with partial demolition. I know there was interest in leaving the gym in particular. However, for just a plain demolition project, we need a set of plans. It doesn't have to be stamped by an architect or have a design professional actually participate in the construction administration. Whereas if we were to do a partial demolition and leave part of the building standing, we would have to make sure that it's structurally sound after we remove the other portions of the building. Utilities they would have to be disconnected from the rest of it, demolished, and then you would have to rerun your utilities out to the building. There's already going to be remediation and hazardous materials testing due to asbestos in the building. It's just unlikely that PSFA would participate in a partial demolition.
You talked a little bit about asbestos, and that's one of our things. I hope everyone got a Q&A. We absolutely have asbestos in that building. It is, the late 70s, early 80s, which most of those buildings, and we've had the reports and exactly where it's located, and we've put in the Q&A the different areas and the estimated cost just for the removal of that. Then after removal, then you have to replace all of those items and rebuild, redo. So that's any project, any renovation we do currently, we have to have the asbestos testing as well as the removal and consider that as part of the cost. So.
As far as PSFA's participation, I think that pretty much sums it up. Do you guys I'm just curious, was the QA released?
Yes, the Q&A's been on our website, but I don't know if it's been widely shared. So,
okay.
People go to our website. Does the board have any questions for Sean specific about demolition, remodel, the funding process?
I'm going to take it back just a bit, just so that I make sure that I understand correct. And I don't know if you would know the historical piece of it, but that, I believe this derived from Senate Bill 43 in 2021. Senator Souls, was this his bill that this money was made available?
I'm afraid I don't know the funding source.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was, because I had attended some of the hearings on it, and some of the arguments, and if I am correct, which I believe I am, I mean, there's a chance the legislature just sometimes machine guns bills, but the initiative was a bipartisan initiative. It passed the House with 69 yeses to 0 no's and then 1 absent. And then in the Senate, it was 34 to 5 with 3 absences. And listening to it then, we to the initial conversations, as a board member, I was very interested in hearing it, just because I knew from our previous facilities master's plan that that it was something we couldn't afford. That there was a need for multiple facilities to be looked at, and then also through the facilities master's plan, we've been under pressure, not a lot, but some pressure from the state. That we have too much square footage, for our population. So there has been, this movement to reduce square footage. So you kind of have to, in the back of my mind, and this is really mainly for the benefit of the 2 newer members.
Thank you.
Thinking, how do we reduce that? Like it's an obligation that a district has to the state to maintain that ratio, and so. I think the barbell building was sort of a no-brainer. I mean, that's probably the oldest facility, but in itself, it's not enough square footage to even satisfy the state, at least if I remember correctly. This is spanning from a previous superintendent, this information. So it's always been on my mind to position ourselves, and always wondering how you make that happen. There's a couple of other ways the district can reduce that, other identified structures. But when Senate Bill 43 came about, I was optimistic, that it was something the district could finally take advantage of. And what I like about it is it takes the pressure off of our local taxpayers. A lot of the questions that I've been receiving from the public have been relative to taxes, and the district wouldn't be paying, and this it takes the burden away from our local taxpayers to utilize the bill and to utilize the PSFA, and so where before it would have been on the backs, obviously our operational would have never been, and correct me if I'm ever wrong, but if we were to do it, we would have to do it on the backs of our local tax base, across the district, or out of, potentially out of our operational, but anyone who's been in this community for the last probably 20 years can tell you that our operational budget would never be able to handle such a reduction of square footage. So just wanted to give you some historical context to the bill and the facilities master's plan. So thank you. Just wanted to.
Sean, do you have any more information or details about kind of the push from PSFA to shrink footprints? And I know like taking portables and going to be auctioning them off, because that's one of the things that we're not utilizing those, and just trying to get rid of some of those, the square footage of stuff. So what's the PSFA's thinking on that?
Absolutely. So we run plans in a 5-year cycle that identify the facility needs of different districts. And one of the primary driving parts of that is the amount of square footage in each district's buildings and the facilities. And we compare that to what would be needed. So with a shrinking school district, what we would like to see in order to participate in funding for for this, for any district actually, is that they're working towards meeting the goals of that facility master plan, whether it is a reduction or an increase.
And just for the benefit of the audience, the Moriarty Edgewood School District has lost 50% of our student population since 2020. I'm sorry, the 2000. So that is why we've been, all these years of declining enrollment and cuts and closing schools, and it hasn't been fun, and it's been painful. But we're hoping to turn the corner, and this is our first step in moving to the next stage and phase of growth out here. And so we're prepared to build a brand new elementary school on that site. So that's kind of where we're at. Any other board members have questions for Sean or for me or anybody else?
I do know there's a question out here. I will say, I'm just going to keep my answers to how PSFA would interact or questions about the demolition specifically.
My question is clarification of something you said.
Sure.
Did I hear you correctly that in order to use these funds, that the cost of potential renovation of a building has to be 60% or less of a new facility?
So for renovation projects, that's typically the metric we look for. It does change project to project, but that's generally for renovation what we like to see.
And has there been any renovation estimates done on this building rather than knocking it down and building a new one?
No, but we generally, we follow construction costs for different building systems pretty closely. The condition of the roof is especially poor. And in my walkthrough of the building, there's a lot of systems in that building that would need to be remediated. Not just the roof, but primarily. I suspect that a building systems report probably find that it's better to build a new school, especially considering it hasn't been occupied in quite some time.
The age of the building, I mean, that was one of the things we talked about, that it's 40+ years old, and what's the life expectancy of a
Typically, we look for a 40-year lifespan of our school facilities. So it's already past its expected lifetime.
But no renovation estimates have been done?
Not on this one specifically, no.
Just for the roof, we'd have gotten a quote for the replacement of the roof, because that's there's going to be stuff falling in. There's already tiles and with leaks and stuff, and it's well over $300,000 to replace the roof on the facility. So one of the things that we don't have in any of our Q&As that our maintenance director shared with me, maybe us, well, I don't remember, was it you and me? No, it was you and me. Is there's beautiful trees in front of it, that those roots are all through the sewer and system and causing issues, and he keeps threatening that it's kind of trees I'm going to have to come down. I'm like, no, you're not. So we're saving the trees. It's like because we think that we can do stuff around that. Those are beautiful trees, but there's just lots of. Yes, in the septic systems and the stuff that's going on.
Well, we also, with just estimate, or just upgrading the fire alarm systems at the other two schools, what that cost us there, we can.
About
for sure that
$250,000 a school size, yeah.
And the bathrooms have to be upgraded.
One of the things, that is a question I did have for you, Sean. I know that when you remodel buildings, you upgrade the restrooms, you have to meet the new codes of capacity. So if, maybe Josh, maybe you know this, is Josh here?
I'm here, yes.
Josh, what is the capacity of one of those gyms? How many students or people can be in one of the multi-purpose rooms?
Yeah, I was with you, I don't know those.
I think it's about 275. Does that sound about right?
That's close to what the
Sign says maybe 325. How many bathroom stalls would you have to accommodate that many people? Do you
I don't know it off the top of my head. I will say as well, so we will participate if it's an issue of capacity, if it's already in an approved award. However, we don't do any ADA, and that is required for the districts.
And does PSFA, since that building will never be used for direct instruction with MESD students, does that?
Yeah, if it's not being used as an educational space, we don't pay for any of it.
So it would be all on the school's dime?
Yeah.
Okay.
The chairperson suggested that the roof would cost the estimate would be about $300,000. Is that consistent with your estimate?
No.
That was not what you said.
I don't think it would. I think it would be substantially more.
You said you did a walkthrough. Did you do an engineering analysis of the roof? Did you go on the roof?
No. We have pictures, and we have assessors that in the last assessment cycle went through and found pretty significant failures.
Yeah, all the descriptions are not specific. Did someone say that the steel was inadequate, or that it was destroyed, or there was damage? What was the nature of the?
Well, there's a lot of, I did look into the roof, and in the places where the leaks come through, there's pretty bad water damage.
Did you look in more than one place?
Yeah, through the entire school. It's for the majority of the classroom space, it's pretty significant water damage throughout the whole ceiling.
Was there any indication that those high leakage spots of any kind of corrosion or impacts or damages to the metal connections?
There was corrosion and
So you didn't see rust staining?
Yeah.
How did it manifest itself?
I mean, you can see it through the ceiling tiles, you can see it drip in the places where there's penetrations in the roof. If you go in, you'll find where the drop-in ceiling has been completely deteriorated and fallen through.
Right, but that's not a sign of corrosion.
Right, but when you look up through there, you can see the corrosion in it.
One of the other places that we've seen significant rust and corrosion, and we've done a pretty good job of covering it up, is the windows in those solar halls. The windows leak, and they leak and continue to leak, and it's rusted all through those areas.
All of those frames are rusted, and then also along the flashing, there was rust there as well.
Can you tell me what the square footage is of this entire south structure?
Not off the top.
It is in here.
I think it's in the Q&A.
In the Q&A somewhere.
Is it the 644?
No, 43,941 square feet. It's on the second page, the third cube.
And on that 60% rule or whatever, 43,000 square feet, what do you estimate it costs to build a 43,000 square foot structure?
So typically, what we're seeing right now is around $375 to $410 per square foot.
Get my calculator out for that.
So I would assume that if there's substantial damage to the roof and the windows, that there is probably also mold present.
I didn't see any.
I'd be concerned
but-
about that in the walls.
We couldn't see any, and we kind of looked, but again, it hides very well.
Yeah.
We had that at other schools and had to replace whole sections and a whole beam, all the walls, and so we've experienced that as well.
Are the major roof issues more in the classrooms, or are they also in the gym as well?
So they were in the gym. There's definitely ingress of water where it shouldn't be. Also, the HVAC, the way the HVAC is set up, there's leaks coming in through that as well. But the worst condition of the roof was, as far as I could tell, and from the pictures that were taken on the roof through the classroom spaces.
So I've heard the word approximate, I've heard the word suspect. Where's the proof? Do we have like an engineer that has done an inspection? Is that gonna be in your input report?
So if we were to go through with a BSAR, building systems analysis, then that would all be part of it. It's fairly expensive to do that, and like I said, I really don't think this would go through council. This has to go through a legislative session for approval that is fairly in-depth, and as well as through PSFA.
That's a great question, and I mean, so I kind of have a follow-up question to that. Are we on the hook as a district for that engineering analysis or any of that, or is that part of the PSFA coverage?
So if it was identified in a facility master plan, it would be, but as far as I know, the last facility master plan identified that building for demolition already. So I don't believe we participate, but let me hold off on that one. Let me look into that a little bit more before I say that.
And on the Q&A, we have talked to the district architect and just to basically come up with a plan to see how much it would cost to demolition part of it and what would have to be fixed, transitioned, et cetera, would be a cost of $8,000 to $10,000 for the district. And again, there's not going to be any SD students in that facility for instructional purposes, and it just doesn't seem like that is not what our bond elections said that we were going to utilize the funds for. So that's kind of on that piece of it. So there hasn't been in depth all the engineering, et cetera, done because it's a cost that is not going to benefit the district.
Because we're not gonna have students in there until we have a new building.
Correct.
We started a little late, so I was letting time roll over a little bit. Do we have any further questions for this gentleman? We're gonna have to start the regular meeting.
I'd just like to thank you for coming out.
Yes, thank you.
And doing all the work that you did to develop the building and giving us information.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Drive safe. Be
Yeah.
careful with the wind.
Question or two. I'll put yours. We usually take them in the order that we got them, so. Mr. Powers, would you want to go first and wait, see if somebody wants to donate?
I'm donating my time if that's okay.
We've already taken them up,
Okay.
unfortunately, so. So if there's somebody that has signed up that would like to donate another 2 minutes to you, we'd be more than happy to honor that extra 2 minutes. Otherwise, you got 2 minutes.
Okay. Anybody?
Going once, going twice.
Speak fast.
Looks like I'm 2 minutes. I guarantee I won't be able to say everything I want to say. in 2
I'll
minutes.
donate my 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, are you signed up?
Yes, the last one, Tom McGill.
Tom again? All right, I appreciate that, Mr.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm Jerry Powers, I'm a commissioner from the town of Edgewood. I'm actually missing my commission meeting tonight because it's so important, this item that you've got on the agenda about the South Complex at Edgewood Elementary, to my constituents who are also your constituents. I was really shocked when I saw the item on the agenda tonight because we have been asking for a public meeting between the town commission and this board to have some meaningful dialogue about something that is extremely important to the people of Edgewood, and that's this item on the agenda. I was really shocked because we didn't even get the courtesy of a phone call to let us know that our request for a meeting has been overridden by putting this on the agenda, and that you're going to make this decision without that meeting and without meaningful dialogue between the town of Edgewood and the school board. And as I say, we have constituents in common. So I'm going to ask tonight that you table this vote until we can have some meaningful dialogue. And also, it's obvious that we don't have the reports and evaluations to even know if it's worth saving this building, and it's more practical to do that than it is to tear it down. I'm a general contractor. I have every license in New Mexico except electrical, and I can tell you from my visits and my opinion of that building that it's a huge mistake fiscally, a waste of taxpayer money to knock down something that is that viable. You got a building by your own estimates worth $14 million. You're being offered $900,000 to tear it down. If I had a home, that's about 5%. If I had a home that's worth $400,000 and somebody offered me 5%, $20,000 to tear it down, I'd call the police. If it was your neighbor's house and you were their conservator, you have a fiduciary duty to that person to make the best possible fiscal decision. If you knocked it down, you would be in breach of your fiduciary duty. So I'm asking that you postpone this vote until we can have some meaningful dialogue, get some reports to make a really practical decision. Not based on, I walked through and I saw some rust and I saw this and I saw that. As a contractor, I know that's not it. We have engineers in the crowd tonight that I'm sure are going to speak to that issue. We work on scientific facts and actual inspections by professionals that are in that trade. So that's what I'm going to ask for tonight. I hope that you will open up that dialogue with the elected representatives of the Edgewood people and your constituents as well, so that we can make the best possible decision for Edgewood. I just want to point out also that this was in your previous master plan facilities plan. It was promised to the Edgewood people, part of that facility, the gym and the cafeteria, as a community center. So I think with that expectation, having closed the school, promised this to the town of Edgewood, that you at least owe that to them to have meaningful dialogue and not take this autonomous action without consideration of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Seeger, Ray Seeger.
My name is Ray Siggers. I'm a local realtor, been in business here for about 48 years. And live in the district. I had 7 students go through it. I got 3 or 4 more grandchildren about to go through it. I'm very concerned about tearing down that building because I see it a tremendous asset to the town of Edgewood, the way it sits. Tearing down $13 million, as our counselors or our commissioner said, when you could work out a deal with the town of Edgewood, I think you need to try. I'm in the property management business. I do a lot of triple net leases. There are ways to perhaps even lease the building and take the entire burden off the district in terms of maintenance and this type of thing. And I think you need to sit down with the town and see if something like that could be worked out. That's a triple net lease. Okay, I mean, maybe the town could find a way to purchase it. I don't know how that's done with this type of property, but you could lease it to the town. You could consider that idea, and you could take all that burden of maintenance off yourself, and you could lease it as is. So perhaps something like that exists as a possibility. So I hope you table this until the town of Edgewood and the school board can sit down and have a meaningful discussion.
Martha Eden, is that correct?
I've been a resident of East Mountain since 1978. My boys both went through Edgewood and Moriarty schools and did very well in life, I would say. In looking up some numbers online, the average age of schools in the United States is 44, average years. 40 years is not a death sentence, shouldn't be. There should be a way to make the building useful. In 2017, a group of us got together. We were going to have a business incubator out of the commercial kitchen in the cafeteria after they closed the school to students. Several people expressed the absolute desire to rent that. They had specialty products they made at home and they wanted to expand their businesses. I think we could have done that very successfully. And you have to be aware, for 2 years, every public building in New Mexico was basically abandoned. This building is not abandoned. It has a daycare center in it. You've abandoned it, we have not. We have several people who would use it, be delighted to pay rent or whatever, to use it for meetings and events and various things. So I hope you will see your way through table this tonight and talk further if you want. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last we have Becky Spindle.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make a couple of points tonight. All the kids in the back, those are the kids the school district needs to serve and use the money to pay for the buildings and upkeep for those buildings, not vacant buildings. Number two, it was mentioned on Facebook today that the school board was hostile last meeting. The only hostility was to me of people interrupting and yelling at me while I was trying to make my points. The other thing, it seems like the town is trying to take away local control of the school board, which is what a lot of people are fighting for these days. The town has known about this for 5 years. They could have come up with $1 million to renovate the building in the last 5 years. They wait till the deadline, and they want everything to change. That's not fair to the school district. But the main point is the school board's fiduciary duty is not to the town of Edgewood to provide a community center. It is to the students, all those kids back there, who need their funds to keep their building safe for them. Thank you.
Why did you always speak last?
You want me to go up because I get so nervous. Stacy had to yell at me.
All right, thank you. All right, there's no further citizen comment. Therefore, we will move on to superintendent's board, just so that, the conversations happen here. I think the information was very helpful that we received during the work session. We're all each individual members, but as chair, we sort of, as a chair, I don't necessarily pick the items, push the items, but we definitely have them, listed on the agenda. Originally, I'd hoped to maybe do this a month from now, while we did try to work out some scheduling issues with some individuals. I believe they were representatives of I don't believe they were commissioners or the mayor. Well, the mayor was going to participate in one, but scheduling was complicated. Why it ended up on the agenda for this is we've received information that I believe it was the mayor had reached out to PED with sort of circumventing the process a little bit. I've tried, out of respect to new members, we have 2 new members, and I wanted to make sure that we gave them adequate time, that they understood the process, as well as they could arrive at their own decision on their own, without, with just the information and the data that we received. The 3 veteran members, we've been kind of sleeping and drinking this for quite a while. This is nothing new for us. It's been part of our conversations for quite a while, even going back, I think, to right after school closure, which was contentious, but the idea there was just to be responsive to our declining student enrollment. So, when it sort of seemed obvious that as we were trying to work that out, that maybe town leadership was trying to maybe circumvent the process. I mean, we literally were in the middle of trying to figure some of this out. I think one of the biggest things we really, an immediate need was to try to help facilitate a facility for the summer rec program in Edgewood, which I think we have the facilities to try to make something like that, to be helpful. We want to do that. But I'm not sure what came of the conversation with the Secretary of Education. But I felt like maybe the conversation had been elevated to a point where we needed to find relevance in the conversation, being that we're going to have PSFA here, and so that we can hopefully give you all adequate information. I know you've sat through the process of the facilities master's plan, and you understand, sort of the initiatives, why the state requires that of a school district. So that's why it ended up here. As I keep it organic, I basically will lean on you all. I have intentionally not reached out or, tried to figure out, your, just decision-making, not wanting to taint that and let you all arrive there. So with that, I'll open it up. I think in the keeping it organic and free-flowing, I think we, as a board, will, have some discussion before you make a recommendation. Just so I can kind of, if there's questions, I think it's important that we ask each other. This is the forum where that happens. I think that we, have received some new information today. I definitely had a couple of things that helped me arrive at my where I'm at. So with that, I'll just kind of open it up. And if you all have questions, maybe the superintendent can answer them. I can try myself, depending on what your questions are.
I guess just with the cost to do any sort of renovation, we're pulling money from direct instruction to our students. I continue to maintain the building in that state.
I feel like if we even attempted to try, well, to me, I think we're being very fiscally responsible by following in our master plan and going ahead and ripping the building down, because we're saving the taxpayers money by allowing the state to pay to rip the building down. We're not using the building. Eventually, we would like to use the building again, eventually in a brand new facility if we keep growing and the area keeps growing. But it's very frustrating to me that Audrey Jaramillo was on this board when this decision was made 5 years ago. And Phil and I used to be on the board, and they knew that eventually this building was going to be torn down. For me, I feel like, we would be completely remiss in using taxpayers' funding, local taxpayers' funding to walk away from this opportunity from the state to pay for this, because that saves us money that we can use down the road for our students that were here tonight. And, our job is to educate students, and we're doing it good, and we want to do it even better. We're at 81% graduation rate this year. 82. 82, sorry. 82.13.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting to me. And if we're going to push forward in that, it's not, I know this town wants a community center. I've seen it. I want a community center. But I don't want it on the backs of our children. That's where I'm at. There's a House bill sitting out there that Charles Salih had told us about from the State Legislative Finance Committee. And as much as that man drives me crazy, he's intelligent. And and he's right. I don't understand why the town won't apply for that money. It's a grant. The state has even said, we will help you write that grant. We even said we would help write that grant for these people and have a really awesome facility that's paid for, that's brand new, that is on the town's property that they own. That would be huge to me. But the comment from the mayor was, we're gonna put more trails in. I don't know where to go with that, except for that's a voter issue. So that's where I'm at. I would ask that people respect my opinion on it. Sometimes people in Edgewood can be pretty hardcore. We've had meetings where people in Edgewood have come up and thrown things at us. You know, we're sitting here trying to be fiscally responsible to our students, we're the largest employer in the area. There's a lot more to this than just a building. You know, I really would have appreciated how these townspeople came to look at our book adoption we had a couple months ago. I mean, we advertised that, and we were adopting new books for English across the, you know, from kindergarten all the way up. And, you know, that's what our job is, and that's where our students need us.
We're one district, you know, we're already Edgewood School District. We treat everybody the same, we try to treat everybody the same. We don't discriminate nobody.
Well, I definitely, you know, after the last meeting and listening to the citizens, I mean, I definitely took the challenge to, like I had said earlier, I've been eating, sleeping, drinking this for years, you know, for probably 7, 8 years, with the understanding of preparing that site for a state-of-the-art or cutting-edge, you know, a new Edgewood Elementary. I feel like that property is deeded. You know, I mean, it is ownership belongs to the district, and in that preparation, you know, I after the comments, I definitely challenged myself to kind of just take a step back and reevaluate everything that I understood. I basically put all of the previous information, the 7, 8 years, in check, and decided I need to see if I arrive at the same place. I challenged myself to do that. I obsessed. That's why, you know, I knew the Senate bill. I looked at the state's adequacy standards. If you all are struggling to sleep, I suggest reading the state's adequacy standards for school buildings. It is, I can understand some of the thinking in that building, but when students are ready to return, those adequacy standards are not even going to be close. You know, it's going to take an absorbent amount of money to bring that facility up to the standards required, both on the federal level, state level, you know, for instruction. It involves lighting, it involves sound, it involves so many things that the district would have to do in order to meet those adequacy standards. You know, so I definitely challenged myself, and I took the challenge from you all to do that hard work, to do the reading, to see the intent of the Senate bill. I did not get a chance to call Senator Souls. I wanted to call Senator Souls and just kind of speak with him directly. Did not get an opportunity to do that, but I definitely put lots of work into reading not only our facility master's plan, the previous one, but the one before that, but also looking at Edgewood's, your section 16, you know, looking at the section 16 master plan and seeing the historical context of that, you know. I think that also another good read, you know. But I challenged myself to go ahead and have the information, because I didn't want to shoot from the hip. In talking to, I've reached out, I've had several people reach out to me, and then I reached out to others, and, one of the concerns that, one of the citizens had mentioned to me was, just being a East Side board member. My district happens to be on the east side of the district, that I don't have any skin in the game, that it would be an easy decision for me. And I tell you, especially the new members, you all know me, you know the decisions I've made, you know how I've advocated for that side of the district from day one.
We all have.
Yeah, absolutely. But, in that conversation, skin in the game, I've painted walls, I've, install network cable. My children, you know, I had a daughter attend that school, I had a daughter play in the gym. My wife taught there. I definitely have skin in the game in that piece, you know. Those decisions don't come lightly. But I have a vision for something better. I have a vision for something for that. You know, if my wife will probably freak out at what I'm about to say, but you know, eventually, I mean, even myself, I will probably be a resident of, you know, I have family that live in that side of the district, and so, you know, as things change and life changes and we get older, and, you know, I need to be closer to medical. So I have a feeling I'm going to land potentially in that part of the community, you know, but I don't take it lightly. I definitely did the work, challenged myself to read just hundreds of pages to understand the historical context, and you know, I just want good things for that community. I think I've said it before, many of you have probably heard me say it. Our two communities, and I say two, but it involves Stanley, McIntosh, you know, I could go as far east as Climate Corners, but our youth, you know, I've been in this community a long time, 50 years to be exact. I'm not telling you how old I am. But our youth have married each other. We've buried our dead together. We shop together, you know, you know, and we educate together. We went through COVID together, you know, I would say your town probably receives most of my gross receipts, you know, because that's a funding source that a district doesn't have, but trust me, you get my money. And, you know, so it didn't come lightly. It's not my job as the board president to push this issue, but it is my job to kind of lead myself to arrive at a decision, you know. And that, you know, I just feel like I have a vision for something much better for that school site. You know, I think we have to look back, other context with the north building. You know, we get $10,000, a little less than $10,000 a year by a lease agreement.
That's by far less than what if we were to do a market analysis.
Yeah.
They should be paying a lot more than that.
Yeah, and so, you know, I look at what burden that has put on this district. We're going to honor that contract. At least as long as I'm here and I have something to do with it, I'm going to advocate that we honor that contract. It puts a burden. It does take away.
We have to put the whole new HVAC system in there,
Yeah.
which costs more than remaking
Yeah.
4 years. 4 years.
So you know, I feel like, but we're going to honor that. That was a need. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe the township was paying close to $7,000 a month for their old library. So, you know, in good faith, I think the district and a previous superintendent reached out and you know, were able to come up with that. But it has been a burden. We're not in the real estate business per se. You know,
We should be in
we're not landlords. We're in the education business. You know, so, anyways, that's how I arrived where I'm at. I did feel better knowing that there's sort of this safety net and a formula that the state has that it's a safety net for the citizens. It makes sure that we're making the right decisions, that if we are just shooting from the hip or something, that there is a safety net, that there is a protocol and procedure that keeps us in check as a board. So that felt good tonight to hear. So I'll shut it. I'll stop. You guys know me. I'll go on and on. Yeah, so.
It's not easy. It's not easy because I know how much the town wants a community center, and it's not an easy decision, but this isn't the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. been on this board too long. I understand the finance part of it. I understand the PSFA part of it. It's not a feasible way for us to do it.
The bill is also, or the legislation and the bill in the process it's not permanent. It's not a permanent fund. There is an expiration date on this money. It's not a permanent piece of the, it's not a permanent initiative by the state. So, you know, that has been a lot of the questions, you know, is the why now, and that is a big piece of it. Any other?
Being the new kid on the block, it's kind of overwhelming for me, but I am all about education. That was the reason why I ran for the seat, was to represent education and a good education. And you have a good program. You have great education. We have great education. I don't have any children in school here. We're retired and seniors, but I care about children today and their future, and I see so much good education out here and good people like yourselves that are here tonight that work hard and give a lot of yourselves. And we all know teachers go above and beyond. I have a daughter that's a teacher. I helped her set up her first kindergarten classroom, and I know how much of her own private, personal goes into her classroom and into educating children. And they are our most precious resource that we have. And so it's not easy to tear down a building and say, but the finances, the money is such a big part of who we are and why we're here. And to be fiscally responsible, to use that money wisely. So I thank you for all the that you shared, and I do empathize with the concern of the town of Edgewood. I would love to see them have a community center, a really great place for the kids to go and for people to use for various facilities and things, but
definitely appreciate that.
But at the same time, haven't we offered 2 other schools that they can use?
For the summer rec, yes, sir.
Yes.
Because we definitely want to work with the community
And the thing of it is, Sean said that he's on the furthest east district of the school. When I was appointed in here, I didn't come for District 3, District 2. I came in for the whole district.
Right.
I mean, I don't pick sides, just like a Republican or Democrat. When you are voted into office, you put that aside and you do it for the people that elect you, the people that don't elect you. That's the way I feel about it. So what I'm trying to say is that we're doing it for the school district, not just for ourselves.
You know, in my challenge to myself, you know, I had to really go back and just rethink things. You know, I think is with experience, like you talked about, you know this stuff. You dig deep into the weeds and you understand at a very micro level.
A lot of trainings.
A lot of trainings. You understand it at this micro level. You know, and I had to take a step back and just ask myself, you know, I thought back, you know, Mr. Chavez just made me think of it when I you know, volunteered to step in to my original role in, you know, on the board right at, you know, that contentious time. And I basically, you know, well, you two were there, and you know, when I was giving my 2 cents of why I wanted to do it, I had mentioned then that I had that my father had a litmus test. My father used to be on the school board, this district's school board many years ago, and I lost him in 2006, but I talked to my father a lot, and then when he was alive, I still talk to my father, but I think of, I had, one thing I told you all was, my father had a litmus test, and I had a litmus test. If it's good for students and it's good for teachers, you know, then it can't be a bad thing. And, you know, I know that that sounds very oversimplified, but I had to take that step back and run it through that litmus test and just look at every scenario that we could possibly look at. And you know, I had to use that again, you know, just to make sure that, like you mentioned earlier, Ms. Burns, you know, that fiscal piece of it, you know, just the burden, that we want to make sure that we are giving teachers the space, good space, quality space, to educate our kids, and that we give good quality space that meets these adequacy standards for our students, you know. And so ran it through that test again and wound up with the same conclusion, so. But,
You can go ahead and vote.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to read the room here, so at least the board, the counter, but with that, I'm good with it. I mean, you know, if there's no questions, if people are comfortable, you know, this would be an opportunity. You know, I'm going to ask for a recommendation here in a second from the superintendent. This would be the time to, you know, look at any other options. Oh, all right. You good? Yep. Well, Madam Superintendent, the board has discussed it, talked, gone back and forth. I haven't heard any initiatives for tabling this, so we'll take your recommendation.
So I am reading that room, so I'll go ahead and recommend that you approve the demolition of the MHS Barbell Building and the EES South Complex on the timeline provided.
All right. So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar for the demolition of the MHS Barbell Building and the EES South Complex. I will need a motion.
Mr. President, I will make a motion that we honor Superintendent Salazar's motion.
All right.
And I will vote yes to go ahead and demo the Moriarty High School building and the Edgewood Elementary South Complex.
So we have a motion from Mr. Chavez, and we'll need a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second for the demolition of MHS Barbell Building and EES South Complex. We'll put this out to a vote. All members in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Anyone abstain? Nope. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for your time. Are you good to move on?
I am.
All right, moving on to the approval of the 2022-2023 instructional calendar.
So I